This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Frigid halls of Winterfell, we bring to you the Nerdy Manroom show with your hosts, Hassel and Monster. Monster, we got a great show this week. Television shows. Who doesn't love television shows?
Yeah, it's America's pastime now. I mean, especially after a year, almost 2 years in lockdown, that's pretty much all you've got to do.
It is. I mean, but kick us off with a little bit of news there, brother.
Yeah, so since we're going to talk about television, I thought we'd start this one off with a little bit of movie news, and it's just a reminder of upcoming films. I mean, nothing spectacularly new has come out so far, but we do get Spectacular Spider-Man and his No Way Home movie on 12/17. Tickets did go on sale yesterday for Spider Monday, as we're recording this on Tuesday, so the Cyber Monday turned into Spider Monday for sales on those tickets. And also, if you saw the news, they also released on Spider Monday. Sony has confirmed 3 more Marvel-produced Spider-Man movies after No Way Home. Now, they haven't told us exactly what they are, but we've still got 3 more Spider-Man movies coming with a partnership between Sony and Marvel.
That's pretty exciting, actually. I was happy to see that right there because I was terrified that we were going to get No Way Home, which opens the door for so much. And that's just what we know. I mean, I'm sure they're hiding a lot from us. But just from what we know, it opens the door for so much. And then I was scared to death it was going to revert back to Sony. And then they were just going to do what they do more often than not when they're holding the reins by themselves.
Yeah. And since we're talking about them, I'll jump ahead. I was going to do another movie first because of the dates. But let's go ahead and talk about the fact that Morbius is also on January 20th. And now this one is a Sony only film, but Marvel had a lot of input into this, and from what I've seen online. So I'm hoping that this is not one of their 3 partnership films, which would kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. But it sounds like that's going to be, from everything I've seen, that one looks really good too.
From what I read, it was a new Spider-Man trilogy starring Tom Holland. Was what I read on. I forget the source now, but when it broke, that was like the first thing. It was like new Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy.
That will be good because there's been a lot of fear that he was leaving after this last one.
It's got to lead up to a Spider-Man Venom. That's an entire movie in itself.
Yeah, but he's mentioned moving on and doing other things, and people are like, "Oh, you're leaving Spider-Man," but at the same time, there's opportunity with this movie for does he have the opportunity to leave because they've got a Spider-Verse now? They have a new Peter Parker, or do they even bring Miles Morales in or do something different? So I'm glad to see it. Hopefully he's sticking around because I really enjoyed his Spider-Man. I think out of all of them, he's been the best blend of Peter and Spider-Man, whereas the others did one part well, but the other part not as much.
Maguire was by far the better Peter Parker to me. Garfield was the better Spider-Man. He was quipping and giving me what I wanted on that side of it, but he seemed to miss it on the Parker side of it. So, I mean, you're correct, they're by far the best blend.
He's been the best dichotomy. And I saw a meme the other day, and I won't spend much time on it so we can move on, but how they said Tom Holland literally manifested his life. They're like, "What's your favorite video game?" Uncharted. He's in the Uncharted movie. He's like, "What's your first celebrity crush?" Zendaya. And now apparently they're dating. If you could play any superhero, what would it be? Spider-Man. Like, how did this kid just? He's like watching an episode of The Simpsons. Whatever he says coming true at some point.
He pulls off the Parker look. That's what I like about it. Like, you feel it with him. Like, you genuinely feel like this poor kid just can't catch a break.
Yes, you really do. But while we're speaking about movies, just so we don't dwell on this one too long, the other one that I had that's coming out this month, or this coming month as of tomorrow, but 12/22 should be The Matrix 4.
Yeah.
I've seen several things of it. Looks interesting. I'm still curious as to how it ties back to the last three. Because the last one did not leave off in a spot that this one should be going on, but this looks like it's going to be a solid movie all around.
I rewatched part one. What was it, Sunday? I believe it was Saturday or Sunday, somewhere in there. It was actually far better than I remembered. I remember, well, it's been years since I've watched them. I remember really enjoying part two. Like, part two was just great to me. It was visually stunning. It was a masterpiece. Part one was kind of real. I didn't remember a lot. And part three, I just remember not liking one bit.
I was not a fan of the third one. First two I really enjoyed.
And honestly, I don't even remember how it ends. I just remember him and the old man in the room together. And you kind of get the vibe like, well, you can have your life, but then everything's going to just be done. And so I don't know how this is going to pick up, where it's going to start, or how they got back in the Matrix. It raises a lot of questions. I don't want to rewatch part three, I'm going to be honest.
I will probably end up rewatching it at some point. I won't say that it'll be before the fourth one comes out. For me, I have a week of travel for work next week, and then it's back home, and it's getting into the holidays. So, as we're going to talk about later in the show, we've got a lot of TV shows going on, a lot of stuff to catch up on, as well as made-for-TV movies, which is not necessarily a part of the show, but that's what I've been watching since about Friday because I ran out of TV shows. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You had some updates on the Braves, right? We were going to talk about that as well.
We just signed one of the Mets, I believe it was the Mets pitchers. It was kind of a little suspect to me. But the big news for the Ozuna fans, he had to sit out pretty much 3/4 of the season this past season over domestic violence. The Braves have already said they have proactively suspended him for 20 games this coming season, right out the door. He's got a 20-game suspension. It makes me wonder what they're going to do in between now and the first of the season in arbitration with the guys we picked up to kind of fill some of these slots. Because we know he's coming back. I mean, at this point, he is coming back. He's going to play. He's a player I actually enjoy watching. He's very exciting on the field, and he rallies his guys really well. Kind of broke my heart when I seen what happened, and I won't get into the details because, I mean, honestly, we don't know. I mean, it's his side, her side, and then somewhere in the truth, I'm sure. But he got a good 20-game stretch. Max Scherzer, he signed with the Mets, unfortunately, so we'll have to face him many, many times this coming season. And he got a monster deal. So, that's what I got in sports this week. Other than, I must say, this Saturday, Georgia Bulldogs play Alabama Crimson Tide, the SEC Championship. It's the first time we've been undefeated since we won the national championship in '80. So it's looking real good. So I'm pretty excited about that come Saturday.
Be careful saying that too loud. You might curse them before they get there.
Hey, you know what? I feel like the Braves busted the curse that we had a 3% chance of winning at the All-Star break when they stole the All-Star game from us. And the Braves won the World Series with a team that should not have won. We had star players arrested. We had star players hurt. We was dropping like flies. I mean, this team was like stink on shit. They shouldn't have been there and won. So, you know what? I'm thinking we're going to just throw the Falcons away. We've sacrificed them. We drug them up the mountain like Abraham. And God didn't tell us to stop, so he got the sacrifice with the Falcons, and we're going to go dog and brave it up this year.
Well, since we're talking about curses and sports, how about the Ringside Collectibles toy news that came out today? I'm pretty sure it dropped today of the was it 6-character assortment?
Literally, it just dropped a couple of hours ago. It scrolled across my phone, and you got a six-figure elite class. So these aren't your basics, your throwaway figures. This is your elites. 4 out of 6 have been future endeavored. Rey Mysterio and Charlotte are the only 2 that are still with the company, and she's trying her damnedest to get gone. But I will say, out of those four that are future endeavored, the Bray Wyatt Fiend figure looks terrible. The Ric Flair does look great because it is the late '95, early '96, just as the NWO is starting to surface. Ric Flair with where he primarily was wearing a lot of the green trunks, yellow boots, and knee pads when the Horsemen first came back together. When Mongo got with them, so and short hair. I mean, it actually looks really good. He comes with a Horseman shirt. He doesn't come in a robe, which is different. I mean, that figure itself, I will get it. The rest of them, I'd future endeavor all of them, but you know.
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned the whole NWO and their time in WCW and Flair and Four Horsemen, let's talk about somebody else who was in WCW for a very brief stint and never should have been, but he's getting a new action figure from NECA, RoboCop.
Oh wow! I feel like I need to buy him and put my Sting figure right next to him in a cage, just so I can reenact that door being tore off.
So have you seen it's actually a 35th anniversary for them next year in 2022.
Yes.
The figure that actually is two figures. They're slated to ship in April of 2022, but you have a regular version of RoboCop, which is what you need for your set there. He's at $37.99 up for pre-order right now, and then there's a battle damaged version with a repair station chair and little computers and stuff. And I think because of all the accessories, he's like $69.99.
See, that's really got me right there because when I seen that, I had to have that chair because I mean that is just one of the more iconic parts of the movie, the series, I guess. You know, he's always in that chair doing the OCP assessments and whatnot. That's where he begins his journey, so to speak. So they knew you wanted that fucking chair, but who's buying a battle damaged figure usually at $40? No one. So they got you. They put the shitty battle damage figure with the chair. No one. You're buying both now.
Yeah, and if they'd have just done just the one figure and the regular figure and then the chair separately, people would have bought both, but you would have lost out on the sale of any battle damage ones you made. Because I don't think many people are going to go for that.
Battle damage would have been minimal if he were sold alone to where. Because I will say the regular version, he comes with a lot of accessories that look really cool. The big guns and whatnot that he shot into an eye with, and a couple of other things accessory wise that look really cool. I haven't bought the unscathed version yet, but I did go ahead and get pre-order the battle damage with the chair. But before it's all said and done, I know me, I'll go back a week from now and buy the damn regular version as well. I had to listen to my future wife get really ugly with me.
Yeah, she might future endeavor you if you keep on. But since you mentioned that, did you pre-order them from Big Bad Toy Store?
Yes, BigBadToyStore.com. I love the fact that you can go ahead and pre-order in advance and they don't charge you until they hit their warehouse. I mean,
yeah, and
the give and take of that is sometimes they get their figures a little later than other websites, but
they are the only online retailer I've seen with it so far. But I'm sure the others will get that as well. But while we're talking about Big Bad, and the reason I brought them up is, did you see the exclusive Obi-Wan premiere Clone Wars premiere statue that they have coming out?
That is a very nice statue. It looks really great.
Yeah, I believe it's priced at $199 and set for release in second quarter of next year. But that was and it kind of shocked me that it was exclusive to them. I just thought it was going to be some kind of premiere statue they were getting. But then as you read it, it's actually exclusive to the store, which is something they don't do a whole lot of. But when they do it, it's nice pieces, man. Because that one is extremely nice.
I like the fact that it has the animated show look, suit. However, they captured Ian McGregor's, visual likeness to where it brought that reality to that suit that we never got on the big screen.
Yeah,
you only got that in Clone Wars animated, and regardless of how great the show was, I wasn't a big fan of that animation style. It was always just a little too cartoony for me. And I get why, you save on cost, and plus the guy that, done Dexter's Laboratory was behind the beginning of it. But you got a realistic version of that figure, and it looks really, really nice.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's a realistic look to a cartoon accurate suit. So it looked really cool. But While we're talking about toys, McFarlane Toys had a leak, reveal, whatever you want to call it today. It's all rumor and conjecture at this point, but several listings found online. I think it was 12 total for new figures that he may be creating for the DC Multiverse line. I'll run through them, and if there's any you want to talk about, just stop me. But there was Anticrisis Wonder Woman from the Dark Knight's Metal storyline. There is a Hush, which I'd kind of like to see what he does with the Hush figure. Although I think his armored figures are better, but maybe the Hush will come out pretty well.
Well, he has enough of between the trench coat and what little knee pads, wrist things. I feel like he'll do a good job with that. And typically, anytime they put a Hush out, I have to purchase it.
Yeah, well, they're gonna have what they listed. There's a Hush, and then there's a Batman versus Hush 2-pack. That one might be, if I was gonna go for it, just because I don't buy very many Batman figures as much as I like him, that might be the one I would go for, just because then I could get both of them. But again, it depends on what version of Hush and what's it look like in there with the Batman.
Is it confirmed as a 2-pack, or the picture was conjoined?
Yeah, that one was confirmed to be a 2-pack. But
okay.
As much as the rumor can be confirmed, right? We still don't know if any of these are going to come to fruition. But
recently we got a half red, half green Hulk figure, so I was just kind of curious if it was,
Yeah, no. From what I read, it was supposed to be listed as a 2-pack. Yeah. Then there's the Joker Dragon, which is from the Dark Knight's Metal story. I'm assuming that's some sort of Build-A-Figure. Otherwise, why? There's a Flash from season 7 of the TV show in the season 7 outfit, which is pretty dang close to the comic, short of having some yellow boots on it, which he does get in season 8. Apparently, this is the thing that Grant Gustin, the actor from The Flash, has been talking about for the last several seasons. He wants a comic accurate suit with the yellow boots, and he's finally going to get it this year.
He's a fan. I like the fact that he is a fan. I like it.
Yeah. There is another Flash that was released or in the rumors today. It's a Wally West, and it just says red suit. There's a lot of, he wears a lot of red suits. Is it the red Flash suit? Is it the one with just a 2-piece lightning bolt, a 3-piece lightning bolt? Is it the Rebirth one? No other information other than it says red suit Wally West. A lot of people are speculating that it's the Rebirth, which was all red with his hair.
It almost has to be, because if you get any version of what he wore back when he was our Flash, it's basically a tweaked Barry Allen. So there's not enough of a difference there to warrant shelf space of a Wally West in the same suit as Barry Allen.
Yeah, the only difference would be the cowl, because it comes across his nose versus Barry's comes up under his eye, and he had white eyes, and I think he took the wings off the boots. But that's the only difference between the two of them.
Minor differences.
But they have already made a multiverse Wally West figure in that Rebirth suit, but it was before McFarlane was doing them. It was in the last wave that Mattel did. But also in this rumor set, Batman Who Laughs as Batman, which is how it was titled, but it's actually Batman Who Laughs, his last few scenes in his full Batman uniform before he becomes wearing the trench coat and loses 150 pounds and looks anorexic. There's a grifter in the rumors from Wildcats.
That does interest me.
That one could be pretty good, depending on how they do it. If you do it with the sculpt and the body that they use for the Red Hood they made not too long ago, you could probably pull that one off pretty well. Duke Thomas from Dark Knights, Duke Thomas is seen on one of the newer, I hate to say Robin because he hasn't really been Robin, but basically one of the newer wards of Batman. But he's in some kind of medieval looking suit that I've never seen him in before, and I read the Dark Knight series, but I don't remember that look, so maybe he had it and I just don't remember it, but it had no appeal for me. There's a John Kent in his Future State Superman outfit, a Martian Manhunter gold label, and the last one on the list was Tim Drake Red Robin, and they're showing the picture as Red Robin from Teen Titans when Rob Liefeld was doing them right after Flashpoint and the New 52, but he's had several outfits since then, so I'm not sure which one they're actually going to put him in. That would probably be the only one out of the set, other than maybe the Flashes that I will be purchasing or looking at. And I will say I did purchase the Barry Allen Flash that they made not too long ago, and McFarlane did a great job on him, even though I've kind of put down most of their figures for the way their joints and all move and the way they look. They have great posability, but it breaks up the look a lot. But the Flash one actually came out really well. But But while we're talking toy news, let's talk about Hasbro. And before we get into that, you actually have a figure you were going to share with us last week, but you didn't have it in hand. So, and since that is a Hasbro Marvel Legend,
this week we have the Age of Apocalypse Colossus. He's a big figure, very big, very detailed. I mean, the picture doesn't do him justice. I mean, it is, he's got the strings in the back. The only thing I have seen that is the shoulder pad is a little too flexible. I ain't gonna say flexible. It's just loose, so it kind of wobbles around a little bit when you grab it or whatever. But you got hands you can change out of. You want the closed fist versus the I'm gonna choke the shit out of you hands. But all in all, man, this was a beautiful figure. It turned out really well. I wanted to show it last week. I will say that is probably the only flaw I have with Big Bad is their customer service. So it stinks because I told you I got the entire wave.
Right.
And when I shipped my loot, I got many other figures. I had the wave of the Thundercats, and then I picked up some retrofit carded figures, and then I picked up a Morlon. Well, the card on him was damaged to shit in back. It was kind of mashed out, folded back. So I just took pictures, and the Magneto was the same way. But I was going to open him anyway, so I really wasn't worried. But I just wanted to say, hey, look, y'all never. And I really wasn't even playing to the point of where I wanted anything. I just wanted to bring it to their attention. Because,
right.
I mean, they was. I don't even want to say how much was in that box, price wise, because I will be, putting myself on a court of law with the honey. But I got an email back from the day that pretty much said if I wanted to return the Magneto, they pretty much said Morlon was what they consider standard grade. The entire seam was swollen out on the back. And I was like, that's not standard grade. But okay. The Magneto, even though his card was folded all the way back, like I said, I was going to open him anyway. So I wasn't worried about it. They told me I could return him. But here's the catch. To return him, seeing as you bought it as a wave, you had to return the entire wave. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was a little let down by their customer service on this right here. So, while I do, it's not going to stop me from buying from them. And like I said, I was going to open Magneto one way or the other. But it did kind of it deterred me a little bit as far as wow, this is what you do.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising.
Yeah,
it's surprising that you got damaged figures. I can't recall ever getting. This is honestly
the first time, and that's why, like I said, I didn't really expect anything to be replaced. I just wanted to reach out to them and say, hey, look, just for future reference, this happened. Because I've ordered so much from them, it's ridiculous, and they've always been top notch. You got bubble wrap, they pack them in a good way. I don't know what happened on this particular order here, but there were damaged figures, and pretty much was like, return them all if you want, but yeah.
That's different. But while we're talking about Hasbro and their toys, I actually picked this up as a Target sale, and I didn't think these were even out, but I actually had it at my Target. It's the Transformers crossover Dracula figure. And since I had all the rest of them, I needed this one, but I missed the pre-order. Pretty neat because it's in the full slide box that you can take out. Now, I'm kind of surprised there's no plastic window in here, which is something we'll get to in a minute that I want to talk about, but it's completely open there, which was surprising. But I do love how they made this a videotape.
I like that right there.
And those have been looking so cool where they've not put anything other than this one in one of these boxes that I wanted to get. But pick this up along with a couple
other. Is that how we're going to get the X-Men 97 figures that come in the VHS looking box? I wonder.
I believe so, and I believe that they're not putting the plastic in there just because they've got the box closed. Now this one I did not have a piece of tape on. I'm assuming there's usually a piece of tape holding it shut. But I assumed that there would be a piece of tape here holding it shut, but there was not. So it slides out. But then again, I could touch the figure, but it's not like it's damaged or. It's an easy way to tell if it's missing or changed out too, especially since this went to a retail store like Target. Because the X-Men one is actually a Pulse exclusive, so that's the only way you can get it. But since we're talking about that, that's one of the big things that Hasbro's been really pushing is they were trying to get into new packaging, trying to develop some new packaging technology, and part of that's to get rid of the plastic window in the cases because the plastic costs more to put into the cardboard box than just having a cardboard box with a figure in it. But one of the things they've been hearing from folks is, hey, if you're going to do that, how do I know I'm getting a good quality figure? Well,
Yeah.
they're not really addressing that as the what's the quality of the figure look like. So do I have one with paint smudges or scrapes or whatever? But what they are trying to do is combat one of the other big things they've been seeing in the last couple of years is this figure swapping theft thing that goes on at the store.
That's literally what I was just supposed to get up there, because I mean, a lot of your retail stores, the people that do the toy department are fans like us.
Yeah.
Without morals like us. So they either do one or two things. They either do the figure swap, like when this is going to make it so much easier for them to do figure swapping, I feel like. Or two, they're to the dicks and they never put the chase figures on the shelves. They immediately buy them once they're off work that day. And I mean, I know a guy, well, I'll let him remain nameless. He used to do this when he worked at Walmart, so I know it happens. But I just, no, he didn't do, I'm not slandering him as far as figure swapping, but I'm just saying as far as
picking out the figures and buying the ones you want. Yeah. Now, you bring up a good point, though, that you think it's going to be easier to figure swap. So that's what the new technology they're looking at. So they started with the smaller window in the Transformer Kingdom boxes. They started putting more cardboard. And they've kind of continued that into their new Fortnite line that they're running. But they're going to start testing in the Fortnite line some new technology actually inside the package. That there's like a strap that runs across the back of the figure, or there's a piece on the figure. There's a strap that runs through there to connect it. Then there's a connecting peg coming from the backside. And you can't take this off without additional tools. Like you can't take this figure out of the box without having either a scissors or a knife or something to cut it loose with, period.
Is that honestly cheaper? I don't see how this could be economically.
I don't know how that's going to be any cheaper. The thing that they're saying though is it's going to be next to impossible to remove it by hand. You know, with just your hands, and unlike this figure has some you got the little straps in here. You can break these by hand. You can cut these with a small knife. They're saying you're going to have a screwdriver or a knife basically to get it out of the package at this point. And what they're also saying is, it's not reusable. So once you break it loose, that piece that's the new tech, the piece that's in there is now not able to be used again. So if you pick up a figure box that doesn't have a window or a full window and stuff rattles around, don't buy it because somebody's already tampered with the insides of it. Which that part I kind of like. I mean,
it kind of strikes me as like, I guess your toddler toys you get with the big truck there, that's all open. And having kids, you had to tear the back off, unscrew the damn thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm for that, but do we lose accessories? That I've already seen online where there's a box set of Star Wars. I think it was one of the first ones that they were coming out with, and it had like 5 or 6 different figures throughout the 3 trilogies. And Luke was already missing the hilt to his lightsaber. The blade was there, but the saber handle, the hilt, was gone. So are we going to run into this right here? And how bad is it going to suck if you find something that is a chase or something that is a super rare figure that and then you're missing half the damn accessories?
Yeah.
Do you buy it? Do you not buy it?
Especially if you're a out of package collector and you're putting it in display. Like for me, some things I would be upset, and some things I would never know because I'd never take it out of the box. I mean, but I get their point with the plastic because the plastic prices are up because of oil prices and everything else. And I guess I like the fact that they're going to try it on Fortnite first because I don't collect that. Now my son does, and I'll have to buy him a few of those, but I'll get to test it out with his before I spend any money on my own for my stuff.
I almost feel like with recyclables, and I guess because I've dealt with plastic for 23 years, so I get it. You can recycle plastic just as easy as you can recycle cardboard, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's an industry I've worked in for 23 years, so I mean, I've seen it done. I've hands-on done it. So I don't really see where, by buying screws to put in the back, and I don't see where they're going to really save me. And I'm sure there's somebody far smarter than I that's crunching these numbers. But I think the backlash, if you start losing things, like accessory wise, sales are going to plummet.
Well, the one thing I will say is if they make it work, they are whatever this technology is, because I've got a few screenshots that we'll include when we, in post production for the show here, so the fans can see it. But it's all going to be patent pending for them. So if anybody else wants to use something similar in the future and cut out their plastic, if McFarlane wants to use it, or someone else, 30 or anyone else wants to use this technology, they're going to have to pay to get the license to use it from Hasbro.
Yeah.
Which
And that's
may bring them the
smart.
extra money.
Yeah, I mean, that may offset. I mean, and they figure out a way to do it where they don't lose accessories, they'll be fine. I think that's going to be the biggest concern.
Yeah, and it may be, but since we're running a little tighter on time, we'll kind of move ahead. But since I mentioned them a minute ago, 3-0, they had a few unveilings this weekend. I think they had a San Diego Comic-Con kind of end of year event that they started doing last year. They did it again this weekend over the Thanksgiving holiday, and 3-0 unveiled a couple of things: an Iron Patriot, an MCU accurate version of Iron Patriot in the 1/6 scale, and then they also unveiled a Power Rangers Ranger Slayer figure, which actually looked pretty good. I actually thought it looked really well. I'm not a fan of any of the MCU styling of figures, but the Patriot didn't look bad. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And then the only other big thing I saw from that was Flames Toys showed their Megazord model. It is the original Mighty Morphin Megazord, and they're known for doing those models, but kind of like putting their own style and flair on them. Like I have an Optimus Prime from them, and it's Optimus Prime, but it's very stylized.
Yeah.
But when I looked at this Megazord, it was not very stylized. It looked, the pterodactyl looked a little bit different on the chest, just a couple of small pieces, but vast majority looked very accurate to the show. I was kind of surprised by that.
I actually haven't seen this. I mean, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it looks, it's very close. The pterodactyl, instead of being a smooth piece at the bottom of the chest, they put like ridge lines and stuff in it to give it some more detailing, which wasn't bad. It's not show accurate. But since I'm talking about Power Rangers and their show, did you see the news of the Netflix deal that Hasbro has signed?
Yeah, that's actually pretty intriguing. That's interesting. I can see it going somewhere we'll like.
Yeah, so we were talking about it the other day, not on here, but they're going to do a whole Power Rangers universe on Netflix. I'm assuming at some point they're going to bring back the old shows that they just recently took off of there, but this will be. We don't know if this connects to previous, or if this is a reboot, or if this is just a different dimension. Hey, this happened over here, but this is a multiverse. But it's going to be not just shows now. There's actually going to be movies that tie into the beginning of a show. Like this movie sets up the show. You have the show, and then this movie sets up an end and maybe the start of the next show. That's kind of what I've been reading about it. It's kind of interesting that they're going completely to Netflix, but Hasbro signed a pretty big deal overall for this. It wasn't just Power Rangers. They sent several properties over. The only two I saw in the picture with Power Rangers though was Monopoly, which I'm assuming that's going to be some kind of TV show, which could be fairly interesting
that
if
was
you
the
like
one
that
that
kind of stuff.
worried me a little bit. That when I seen that was like, because they were all jammed in the same picture, and it was like, ooh, please don't.
Yeah, no, they're all going to be their own universe, but it's the fact that they're sending all these things and making it so that Monopoly's going to have something. So I can see Monopoly being a TV show that's like kind of a drama type show, like a Dallas or something, and it's all about having a monopoly and buying all these things up and running something. But then the other one was Dungeons and Dragons, and that one looks like that one could produce a lot of good TV shows.
I can see that if they produce it in a Witcher style. That could be something really cool. But the Power Rangers, I'm fine with reboot at this point. You can start all the way over at Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Let's don't get too woke on it. But you've got 30 years of what you know works in the United States and what doesn't work in the United States. We've had our seasons here, and then we've had our seasons here. So you know what does and doesn't work. I mean, I would be totally fine with rebooting Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Same characters, you don't have to change the name, just redo it. I mean, it doesn't have to be scene for scene, but you pick and choose what worked and what didn't work. And I'd also be fine with doing an animated style movie with the original voice cast, because I'm sure they can make them, for the most part, sound young enough for it to be enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at it, they've already tried to reboot once, right, with another movie. And honestly, the really cool thing to me was that their movies are going to tie into the show because they've only done that. Out of 3 theatrical release movies, only one of them tied into the show and then bridged the gap between Zeo and Turbo because it was the Turbo movie.
Yeah.
The original Mighty Morphin movie had no effect on the show, completely different timeline.
Yeah.
The new 2017 reboot one had nothing at all to do with the show other than sharing the same name. I just hope that because they'll be on Netflix, it'll be a smaller budget. That was always my concern with going back to a studio for another movie. Are we just going to get another Iron Man suited rehash?
Netflix sinks some money into their properties. I mean, they've had a great deal of success with what they've had. So I mean, I think the money will be there.
I don't think it'll be a cheap production by any means, but I don't need them to look like Iron Man in their suits. If you want to leave them in the spandex or just give them like a wax armor type looking suit like they had in the very first movie in '95, I'm fine with that. I don't need Iron Man suits. That's not what Power Rangers is.
Well, but you can go to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for what the rest of the cast had. Something along the lines of how Captain America's suit come off. That was or Hawkeye or various ones, you know. Even Vision. I mean, his suit. I mean, something along that lines of what they did with Vision. That looks good. I mean, it doesn't have to be metallic. That was probably the biggest flaw I seen. It's not that the rebooted movie was terrible.
No, the movie
they
itself
tried to steer too far away with the fact that those suits were shit. And I've seen concept art for the movie that had a lot better looking suit that they didn't use. And the melting gold are, of course.
Yeah, there was a few plot holes in there that were pretty bad, but for the most part, it was actually not a badly written movie. It was, and the actors were actually good, especially a couple of them were really, really good. The guy who played the Blue Ranger, his name escapes me right now, but he was fantastic in that part. But you know, we'll see how it goes with Netflix, and I don't expect to see or hear any of this. I know they're doing one more season of their current running show anyway next year on Netflix, so probably 2023 before we even see anything out of it. But since we're talking the streaming television services right now, Disney Plus, Book of Boba Fett reminder starts on December 29th with the first couple of episodes, I believe. And I see that every week they're putting out a new ad, which is new. I think mostly the same scenes we've seen so far, but they'll drop a couple of little extra pieces in those little trailers. I think they're only a minute long or so, but they've been dropping a few extra things in there. I've seen 2 new trailers since last week since we recorded.
I didn't get to watch it today. We were pretty busy at work, but I did see where they dropped one. I'm assuming yesterday or today.
Late yesterday.
It showed how he survived the Sarlacc pit. And it looked like he was in a bottle tank. So, I mean, or however you say it. I mean, he appeared to be in one of those tanks. So I was like, okay, but who put him there?
Yeah, and that's some of the things I'm hoping we'll get to see. But since we're talking about Boba Fett and he was a spinoff from The Mandalorian from his return, the other Mandalorian spinoff show, Rangers of the New Republic, was officially shelved this past week. I believe it was on Friday. I could be wrong with the day, but it came out late last week. Officially shelving it. You know, there was a ton of controversy about it because Gina Carano's character was supposed to be the main character, and then her whole firing and the way it was handled and all the backlash. Everybody kind of like, all right, it's going on hold, but now apparently, even after I think she's coming back for season 3 and stuff for Mandalorian and all, but no matter how well they've mended that fence, the creative differences is what's been cited. Like, we could not come back to the table and get to the point where the show was going to be made the way we wanted it. So we just gave up on it. It's basically what I read into the article.
And I don't think it was on her end or backlash from her. Honestly, because the guy that was the main villain of the last season, the guy that played the Grand Moff, his name escapes me. He's a great villain in everything he does. The one that had the Darksaber. He says she was one of his favorite cast members to interact with, and I mean, her political views should be just kept quiet. Star Wars need to learn to keep that at home.
And I think what caused it, and when I say that her controversy probably fed into the creative differences, was on the end of the producers and the developers of the show. I think they had a bad taste in their mouth, and they just weren't going to agree to changing anything at that point. And when they were asked for any changes,
she was completely refusing to delete tweets.
Yeah,
which is first of all, you shouldn't even be making these tweets, but second of all, not if you're a big a huge public figure like that, and part of a major show where other people's futures depend on you. Because I mean, if you tank this show, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that lose jobs. So I mean, keep your political views to yourself. You know.
Yeah. So unfortunately, because that looked like it was going to be a pretty interesting show, but unfortunately, it is now nixed. Which hopefully we can find more to watch. I think that's a perfect segue for us to talk about what we're talking about this week, which is television shows. One thing I wanted to mention before we get too deep into that is, unlike when we did the animated series and we said, hey, what makes a great animated series? We didn't want to repeat that again with the TV shows because it's going to be mostly the same thing. You got to have the right acting, whereas we talked about voice acting in animated. Here's full acting, and you got to have the right people in place. You got to have a good plot. So I feel like we would have rehashed the exact same needs to make a great TV show.
Yes.
So we kind of skipped over that. And we're going to talk about first, what are we watching? Is there any kind of genre we stick to? Is there any other stuff we watch? And then what we're currently watching. And then I think after that, we're going to do a top 10 of our favorite TV shows. But let's kick it off and talk about what we're watching. So, Hassel, what are you watching in today's world?
As far as me, there's not a whole lot that's just pulling me in with you have to sit down and watch this every single week right now. Like I said, I watch a ton of sports. Saturdays college game day, Sundays NFL day. I watch my AEW. I mean, I've given up on WWE with the exception of pay-per-views. I will watch those. So I mean, sports aside, very little pulls me into. I just have to watch this. The show that has me the most right now, and it's probably I will go on record right now and say it is the best damn show on television right now. Currently, is Yellowstone. I am just enamored with this show. It's great. I love it. It's got everything you want. I mean, there's action, there's violence, there's drama, there's you invest in these characters. You watch characters that you think are going to be throwaway characters, and you fall in love with them before it's all said and done. And then there's something that makes you like, God, I want to kill the shit out of you. And it's getting a spinoff of its own. I think it's 1883, if I'm not mistaken. Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Sam Elliott with that powerful, majestic mustache. I'm super excited for that. Other than that, I mean, obviously I watch my Marvel shows. I will say that I haven't watched the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye. I feel like I've let people down. But it's the first one that I haven't felt like I had to watch the week it came out. Like literally,
right.
The others within a few hours of it dropping, I felt like I had to watch them. Of course, I'm gonna watch Book of Boba Fett. The Mandalorian is a must when it's active. Cobra Kai, I'm super excited to see a new season of that's about to drop.
Yeah, that comes this month.
Yes, I am.
Or this coming month.
I am so ready for that. I mean, and anyone that says Daniel LaRusso isn't the fucking villain, you need to get your head examined because I'm telling you, it was an illegal kick. I'm Team Johnny all the way here. I mean, I would have never thought that going into this show because I resisted, but I love it. It's great. One of the ones that surprised me that I feel like I have to watch now is the Chucky show that's on USA. I mean, I think it's USA Sci-Fi, depending on where you want to watch.
I saw that, but I hadn't heard anybody say anything about it.
It's actually really good. It's just super woke. I will say that because, the guy that created the show or created the Child's Play in general, the director and writer and all this stuff, he's an openly gay man. So, I mean, back in the late 80s when he wrote that, I mean, it was not as socially acceptable.
Right.
Now it is. So yeah, you got the main protagonist of the show. He's a gay little guy, and it's his journey along with the fact that he's going through so much. But you know what? It's not over the top. They don't push it on you, to the point to where it's and you got returning characters like Andy Barclay from the original series. He's in it. The stepsister from part 2, she's in it. Jennifer Tilly, obviously. You got the real voice of Chucky. I mean, it's a very, very enjoyable show. I like it. It's one of those that if I do miss a week, I will watch two back to back.
Yeah.
It's one of those there. I have my list beside me that I feel terrible about, but I do have it with me. Tiger King season 2 just dropped.
I never watched the first one.
You are doing yourself a dishonor because
I,
I'm telling you now, I have rewatched season 1 3 times. Quarantine, I never would have thought I'd have enjoyed it. I had friends that was watching it. And we had nothing to do in 2020.
Yeah.
Finally, I was sitting there, I was deep into a bottle of Crown Black one night, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. First episode, you kind of muddle your way through, and you're like, by episode 2 or 3, it's that train wreck you can't turn away from. And it's like, and Joe is just so over the top too that it's like, there's one scene where this line, Tiger, he's filming a commercial, and this tiger grabs him by the leg, and you see him kind of swat it off a little bit. Next thing you know, it drags him down. Couple more start coming at him. He has to pull his firearm and start shooting. And he's like dropping MFers left and right. And I was like, you know what? I like this guy. He's very, very openly gay, but he is just the coolest cat. If you get time, just sit down and watch it a couple episodes. If you're not hooked by episode 3, I'll buy you your favorite beverage next time I see you because it is
You've actually mentioned several that I haven't watched. I haven't seen Yellowstone. Haven't seen Tiger King.
Ooh.
My TV gets very limited to a lot of sci-fi and superhero type stuff, and then a few select comedies. Now, I will admit I have a few that are honestly guilty pleasures that if we weren't doing this, this show, I probably would never admit to anybody else outside my household that I've even watched them. But there's a couple of those in there too. The
only other thing I had on my list was the Mayor of Kingstown. I'm only one episode in because it's just started, so I think they're literally on episode 2 maybe. And it's got the guy that plays Hawkeye. Major plot twist at the tail end of the first episode. It was very, very enjoyable. If you anyone that likes something like Sopranos, I feel like this is a show for you.
Yeah, I've seen previews for that one, but I haven't stopped long enough to. Like I said, I've got a lot of stuff I have been watching. It's just slightly different stuff than what you have, and some of it's probably the same thing. But
what do you have on your list? What makes Monsters list of current must sees?
I am big on. I used to be really big on comedies and sitcoms and stuff, and there's just really not a lot of them that I care for right now. But there are a few. Resident Alien, which is kind of a sci-fi sitcom. That one's hilarious to me. Mm-hmm. What We Do in the Shadows. If you've never seen that show tickles me because there is no political correctness to that show at all. They say whatever they want to, whenever they want to. I sat down this weekend and actually, and as much as I thought I was going to hate it, I watched both seasons of Saved by the Bell, the new one that's on Peacock. For a lot of dad joke stuff, it was actually pretty funny for a good bit.
Really?
I actually enjoyed it.
I was kind of curious about it because I always loved Saved by the Bell growing up.
I did.
And I did read today where they're going to touch. Apparently, they got renewed for another season, and the next season they're going to do a tribute to Screech.
They actually did it in this one.
Okay, was that it?
The end of the second season's first episode, because you see them talking about stuff during the first episode, and keep talking about stuff being hard or this being hard, and they play it up because Zach and Kelly are married in this new show. They play it up like maybe they've had some problems, but at the end of it, you see all of them, and they even have who she wasn't in the first season, but the girl who played Lisa Turtle came back, and they were all sitting in the Max eating, and the guy who runs the Max, which is the guy who was originally running it on the show, the curly-headed magician guy, he actually brings them out a burger named the Screech Burger, and it's a spaghetti hamburger or whatever that he ordered in some random episode, and they toast to him, and then they show a bunch of clips from different episodes that he was, that he had some big parts in.
I feel that gets you in the feels right there.
That one did a little bit, but the whole show, having the old cast on there with the new kids is actually pretty funny. And the new kids try to be a little woke, and then the older ones are like, no. And it just comes off as very funny. It's like two different generations. It's like, that's not what we did back in my day. It's like all Slaters all the time. Like, we would have just had a dance off. It just, for whatever reason, it tickled me a good bit. But I do have a couple of other shows that I'm sure you have never seen. There's a couple of reality game shows, or actually just one now. The other one's canceled, but The Circle on Netflix. These are the dumbest people alive, and they make for great, stupid TV. I mean, they're on here competing with each other to see who's going to win. It's like a social media game, as they call it. They're all in apartments. They don't see each other, and they play against each other. These people are so stupid. I have never in my life witnessed people that dumb as these people, but it is hilarious. I feel like I'm just reveling in their idiocy, but I am enjoying it.
Yeah, it's along the lines of what was the show we used to watch? It was kind of along these lines, but it was like you had the two Shogun guys with terrible voiceovers. It came on Spike. I forget the name escapes me.
No, this one is actually them. And so everybody is in these apartments, and they have you can't talk to anybody. You don't get to leave the apartment. You're in that apartment for the entire show, and you talk to each other through the screen called the Circle, and it's like Instagram. You put, or Facebook or whatever. You put a picture up there, that's your profile pic, and you put this bio about yourself. Half the people aren't the people they say they are. They're trying to catfish everybody else, and the others are trying to. Whoever wins at the end gets voted as the most popular and the most real or whatever gets to take home money. But every episode they vote people off, and as soon as they vote somebody off, they bring other people in to fill the spot.
It is reality based though.
Yeah, but like this last season, this one girl was on there, and then when she got voted. They voted off from the first episode and voted these two sisters out who were playing this one character together and staying in the apartment together. So, but instead of being kicked off the show like they normally are, they're given a chance to clone somebody else. So they're playing one of the other people in there as well. And this other person's like, who the hell is that? That's not me. And they convinced that all the rest of the contestants that they're the real person, and they vote out the other one as the clone. It was like, what the fuck is this stupidity? But it is hilarious, man.
I think the only reality-based show I could really watch, and could. I was actually addicted to this show for a short spell. Was MasterChef. As much as you like when you see the commercials for Hell's Kitchen, you want to hate Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
But when you watch MasterChef, he's the one that's like the voice of reason. Like he's trying to pep these people up and like, hey, would you do this for The guy Joe on there, I'm like, you're a prick, dude. You're terrible. Like, nothing's ever good enough for Joe. But I do enjoy MasterChef. I guess it escaped my list, but it's the only reality-based show.
I don't do much reality ones. I just saw this one on Netflix one day, and I had nothing else to watch. And I was like, I'm gonna watch one episode. I was hooked after one, and just dying with these people because they were so dumb. And then they've had like 3 seasons, but when they come out with a season, they drop 4 episodes. Next week's another 4 and another 4 until you get to the full 12 episodes. It's like, it's a quick watch. So I've kind of picked up on that one.
I honestly thought you was going to hit me with the Squid Game, so I'm pretty proud of you.
I haven't watched that. I do watch a lot of sci-fi stuff, which is actually the next stuff on my list. But The Flash on CW, that's actually, I watch a lot of those DC shows. Now I've kind of weaned off of some of them. Like I watched the first season of Batwoman, and it was so bad I said never again. I watched all the seasons of Supergirl, and I would fall asleep through half of them because they tried to be too woke and too politically correct. But like The Flash, I don't get that feeling from it. It's not always. It's out of all the shows, it's the least woke, but it's also the most, also the least dark. It's like the most hopeful out of them, which is what the Flash's character is supposed to be. So I get into that. Now I really
enjoyed the first 2 seasons of that. I watched that there. I kind of swore off DC shows probably after Supernatural, but I did watch the first 2 seasons of Flash, and I enjoyed them. The other shows I couldn't get into just because they just seem to change things just to change things. I mean, I just
the other of the CW shows like that I watch is like Legends of Tomorrow, which is I watch it more for the comedy of the superhero stuff because they have the smarter mouth ones, and that's usually pretty funny. But Stargirl surprised me. That's actually a really good one, and it's a very legacy one. So they talk about a lot about the JSA, and they have not just her as a character, but they have the legacy members of the JSA keep popping up and joining them. Like Jade, Green Lantern's daughter, was on there this last year.
Oh, okay.
And they fought Eclipso. I mean, it's the outfits are a little more kiddie looking than probably some of the other ones are, but it's still enjoyable to watch. It's got a good plot line for the most part. Other than that, most of my stuff is streaming and it comes and goes. But like Titans on HBO Max is after the first season, it got much better. First season tried to be dark just to be dark, and I was whatever. But after that, it got a lot better. Doctor Who, obviously, whenever it comes out with a new one, and even though I'm not a big fan of the current Doctor, it's actually I still watch it. Have you seen The Nevers on HBO Max? That's actually a pretty good show.
I've never even heard of that.
It is very it's like the X-Men, but it's set in Victorian England, and all the most of the characters that have power, not all of them, but most of them, more of them are female than male. But it's if you watch it, you see that it's something from the future that came back in time and infected certain people with powers and stuff, and a lot of them because of whatever their genetic structure was that did them. But there's a whole school of these kids, and there's these two ladies who run it, and they try to protect the kids as well as take care of other people, and it's very interesting. It's also not very suited for children because there's a lot of times where it shows real adult relationships. They break down and go to the bedroom sometimes, and they don't mind showing it.
Well, Yellowstone is along the same lines. I mean, you don't get full frontal, but you do get sex scenes, and you'll catch a good bit of side boob or things of this nature. So yeah, I get you there.
Yeah, and this one doesn't shy away. They'll show you a full frontal shot. They don't care.
There's actually a show, and I hadn't caught the name of it. It's something Bay or something, but it's actually a spinoff of Salem's Lot, and Adrian Brody is apparently the star of it. That's set back in the 1800s, and I'm assuming it follows that original vampire that's through in the Salem Lot movies.
Yeah.
But it's on one of the streaming platforms that I don't have. Whichever one it is right now, I'm not sure. It kind of escapes me, but it looks really good. And I almost it was a free preview where you watch like the first 2 episodes. But I knew if I did that, I would buy another damn service for something that's probably not 6 to 8 episodes. And I already have Shudder now just because of Creep Show. So yeah, no. I can't do it.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I'm trying to not buy anymore. And I mean, honestly, I keep seeing a couple of shows on like Apple TV, like Blind and stuff like that. I'm like, I want to watch that, but I ain't buying another subscription service right now.
Well, what is the name of the show with Jason Momoa on there?
Blind.
Batista. Yeah, that right there. I got the name. I kept seeing previews, but even before Batista joined the cast, it looked really interesting. And then when you're seeing like Batista join, and these two are going to be,
it's hard not to.
And I got a new show with Will Ferrell and Ant-Man, so Paul Rudd, something about the Shrink or something like that.
I haven't seen that one.
It looks really, really interesting. Paul Rudd is a Shrink, and apparently he's like manipulating Will Ferrell, which would not be hard to do. Yeah, it's like Will Ferrell's this guy that like he's believing in his Shrink. And the Shrink is you want to get comedy vibes out of it, but I think it's actually be a little more drama based. Like he's truly manipulating him and doing nefarious acts with him. So it looks interesting. And by the end of our own show, I'll be talking myself into Apple TV.
Yeah, I try not to, and so one of the things that keeps me from doing that is I do have a few shows that. There's one other I'm watching right now, La Brea, on Peacock or on Hulu. You can watch either one just because it caught my attention too. It's like it's kind of has its slow moments and its good moments. So I'm not going to say it's must see, but I have been watching it. But Netflix keeps me interested a lot of times. And HBO Max too, when they throw something out, so this is coming at some point soon. I'm like, okay, now I can kind of wait out and not pick up another subscription. But Netflix, The Witcher's coming back out later in is it December or is it January? I can't remember.
It's relatively soon because Henry Cavill he dropped a picture today.
Yeah.
Full costume and said coming soon. So it's he's starting to tease it up on his social medias.
It's either December or January. I can't remember which. And then the other one, the Lost in Space that they did, which is a lot more. It's not like the original Lost in Space. It's a lot more. I guess suspenseful is the best way to put it. But they have one more season coming out on Netflix, and I think it drops on the 4th of December. So that's another one I'm looking forward to watching.
It's not a lot of danger, Will Robertson?
No, the robots are the danger. Or the one robot that turns and joins them. The rest of there is a species of that robot, and they are killers.
Oh,
This
okay.
one joins them and takes care of Will Robinson because they treat him like a person. He befriends them and he becomes a part of their family. But the other robots, not so much. They're like,
Okay.
no, we're going to eradicate you humans.
That's
So
actually kind of interesting. That's a different twist.
it's pretty good. They got another show like that on Netflix too called Another Life, and I watched the seasons of it. It's actually pretty good. A very similar thing. It's like an AI, this alien race lands on Earth and is offering all these things to humanity and making them, we'll make you part of our collective and we'll do all these things for you. We'll end world hunger. We'll regrow trees because it's a little bit in the future, not far flung future, but far enough in the future that like climate change has affected a lot of stuff, and then you find out that it's actually an AI system, and they don't want humans leaving Earth because they think humans are any carbon-based life form to them is a horrible thing. They want them to stay on whatever planet they're on, and they want to govern them.
Ah.
So it has a good twist to it, but it's a very interesting show. And there's been 2 seasons of it on there, I think. I'm trying to remember her name. It's I can't remember the actress's name. That's the main lead, but she's been in a lot of sci-fi shows and stuff. That's really about all I've been watching, honestly. I mean, that's kind of the rundown of the shows I've been doing. I have started Cowboy Bebop, but I'm not far enough along in it to say if I like it or not. I didn't care for the original anime, but the live action's actually what I watched was pretty decent so far. But I'm halfway through one episode, so kind of hard to judge it so far.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of what I've been getting online. Is like even people that weren't, fans of the anime were enjoying the live action.
Yeah, the anime went a little too over the top sometimes, and live action has the comedy in it, but it seems a little more subdued, I guess is the best way. It fits perfectly what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say at the time, versus being 10 minutes of screaming and eye bulging the cartoon gave you.
Yeah.
But since we've run through those, and just kind of what we're watching now, I think what we were going to talk about after that was a top 10 TV shows, and then whereas when we did the animated, we said what was their influence as well. I think these are more of the criteria for these was just what are our favorite shows and why. I don't think there was a really big that they had some huge impact, unless one of them did. But I think we were more about what was the top 10 shows for us. Is that kind of the way you?
Yeah, pretty much just if you're thumbing through and you wanted to pick up something, you could just throw a few episodes on, enjoy yourself for a few hours, cut loose.
Yeah. So what was our must see TV? I guess is the best way.
Yeah. Overall.
And like every time we do a top 10 list, we'll banter back and forth, and you throw one out, and I'll if I match it, we'll match it. If not, we'll go on. But I think before we were going to swap up a little bit this time and do our honorable mentions first, and then go into the list of 10. You want to go through your honorable mentions first?
Yeah, actually, Penny Dreadful is probably
That was a good show.
I loved it. It was great, and like you said, it had the adult program. It's nothing you want to sit around and watch with the old kids, but loved Penny Dreadful. So it was definitely one of my ones I had to start with. The Terminator series that was on Fox a couple of years back, where you had the female Terminator that was there to do the protecting. It was it Terminator Genesis? Maybe it was what the show was called.
It was either Genesis or Salvation, because one of them was a movie and one was a show, and I can't remember which was which.
The show that it was on Fox, it only got one season, and I don't know why, because like the production value was there.
And the girl from Serenity, that was the main girl in the Serenity movies, was in it, right? I remember that show.
And the chick from Game of Thrones, so that played Cersei, she was Sarah Connor. I mean, it was actually really good. Really good. I enjoyed it. I mean, why it didn't get another. Well, I know why it didn't get another season. It was on Fox, because Fox is the king of producing a great television show. You get one season of son of a bitch, and they move on, but they got 47 damn shows about the Masked Singer or the VR singer or whatever the hell they got going on now. We got 30 of those, but those were two of my honorable mentions that I had to kind of put out there. I'm kind of glossing over some notes just to make sure I'm not missing something, but I think the rest of my stuff pretty much touches into what I wanted the top 10. I mean, I know with my top 10 and my honorable mentions, I stay away from cartoon shows, obviously, because I have several that's just I love.
Right.
And not even superhero, like I have a Bob's Burgers or something like that, Simpsons.
Yeah.
So I stayed clear of those, and of course, old school comedy shows from like the 70s and 80s. I'm a big sucker for all those. So
Yeah.
I try to stick around 90s moving forward. I will say Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I guess I can throw in there as an honorable mention.
That's a fan, and
It stands the test of time.
they have a reboot of that coming out too.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I
it's not until next year, but I saw where it's being advertised for Peacock now. I'm not sure. I haven't formed an opinion yet. But kind of like you, like I love those 80s and early 90s sitcoms, and we really don't get sitcoms like that anymore where there's situational comedies. It's one episode is self-contained. The only carryover arch is, hey, we got to go to school today, but that's life. I mean,
yeah.
and they might talk about how you've had this relationship or you met this person in 10 episodes before you ever ask them out, but that's life, right? So I kind of like those situational comedies like that, and I really didn't even for my honorable mentions, I had a couple of those in there with Family Matters and Full House. And everybody can diss me for Full House, but by God, you had to watch it after the before you got to or after you got through all of your cartoons on the afternoon shows. But I had.
Full House was an enjoyable show. It was fun. It was upbeat. It was.
I actually like the newer one they made too, the Fuller House. But
Really?
the entire thing wasn't great. It was specific episodes when you got to that point.
I got you.
My other honorable mentions, most of them are older and most of them are sentimental reasons because I watched them, with my dad or whatever. But Knight Rider, the A-Team, I mean, those are great. They didn't make my top 10. Mandalorian's a newer one, but I had to put it in honorable mention because it didn't make my top 10 either. But the last my honorable mention, I actually have two versions of the show, and I like the original for, like I said, nostalgia and for watching it with my dad. But Macgyver, and then the new version that they did. I don't remember exactly when it started. It ran for 5 seasons, so 5 years of it, and then ended last year. But it was actually really good. And the kid who played MacGyver in that one was actually really good at explaining the stuff and doing it as he did it. So it reminded me a lot of the old one, but they had more action to it than the old one did sometimes.
I was a kid from the Wolves movie, correct? With Jason Momoa and.
I think so. He was also Havoc in X-Men First Class.
Yeah.
Lucas Till.
If you've never seen Wolves, for you horror fans out there, it's a very underrated B horror movie with some pretty damn good effects. The story and the effects don't deliver like a B movie, but it was you could tell direct to video.
Yeah.
But really good. I mean, same kid is in those, so I mean, you get a chance, check that out.
Yeah. So I think with that brings us past the honorable mentions and top 10. You want to kick us off on this one, or you want me to kick it off this time?
Tell you what, you take the helm.
Well, I'm going to start with my one guilty pleasure in my top 10, which is one that you are not gonna like or have ever probably watched. But my first one was Dawson's Creek.
You have been judged.
That's what I figured was coming.
There will be no jury. You have been judged.
I don't even know why I like that show, but I can still turn it on and watch it. And it's the only drama show that is just drama, and like a teen drama like that, or a tween, or whatever you want to call it, that I can actually sit down and watch. There's some other dramas that I can watch because they have some comedy to them, or they, like Resident Alien, or they have sci-fi to them, like a Smallville or something. But Dawson's Creek, for whatever reason, that was the only drama I ever watched like that, and I can still watch it.
A side of 90210 Melrose Place to go with that?
No, thank you. I avoided those. But Dawson's Creek, that I'm gonna come out the gate swinging with that one, just to give you something, just to give you a softball first.
Well, you know what? As soon as you put the old softball up there, I've got my good slugger back up. I got Lucille, and I'm going with The Walking Dead.
Fantastic show.
Up through the season that Rick has written off.
Dude, I was fixing to clarify. Fantastic show up through like season 8, 9.
I'm not even a fan of the season that he was written off, because that season was really hit and miss to me. You had some major lulls on there, and then you'd have like a good episode and some major lulls. But the season prior to that and before, my God, that's just very few. To me, when you say what catches you, a show that is so good that, like, my kids knew Sunday nights at 9 o'clock,
What the
You
hell
better shut the fuck up. Don't you speak until that commercial comes on. If you feel like you have to talk between commercials, better go to your room.
you got
My kids knew that. I had them trained. And because I mean, I'm one of those that when I'm really into the shit, like if I'm just kind of casually watching something, I'll be dicking around on my phone, or I can hold conversation. It doesn't matter.
But if I set
Yeah,
the phone
Yellowstone
down,
is one of those I didn't put in my top 10 all time, but it is right there with what I was like with Walking Dead. Like, God bless Amy, she was trying to talk to me last night, and I'm watching Yellowstone, or Sunday night. I apologize. And I'm watching Yellowstone, and I'm really trying to hear what the Duttons are saying. And she's over here explaining something that really matters. But I'm just like, and I finally just had to pause it, look. And Walking Dead was that for me.
But if you take the phone and you turn it face down and lay it like this, don't fucking talk to me because this show is important.
Yes, I can't have it face up because I can't know that you've texted me because you're
Right. I
bothered
can't
me.
look at it until after because
Yeah,
you getting on my
injured.
last damn nerves texting me, even if I want to talk to you.
I mean, I keep my phone on vibrate anyways, so but
Same here.
I cut it on silent during that show because I did not want to know. Now commercial, I'm picking up, I'm responding to people.
Exactly.
I avoided
And I
social
do the exact
media
same thing.
until 10 o'clock when Talking Dead comes on. I picked Facebook back up so that I didn't catch a spoiler in case somebody's TV was a few seconds ahead of mine. But man, there's so many great episodes and scenes that are just iconic. Like where Rick tells that guy, he said, "I've got a redhead on machete, and I'm going to kill you with it." Most gangster shit ever.
That's when he's tied up and he tells him, hey, he's telling him what's in there.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got this, you got this. Oh, and there's a red-handed machete. That's the one I'm going to kill you with.
Yeah, he's like most gangster motherfucker ever. And it's like, you know what? That's my boy right there. I was so let down. I mean, any of you figure collectors out there, 03 does a great Rick Grimes.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty high right now, but if you can get your hands on it at a reasonable price, go for it.
The only reason I did not put that show in my top 10 is because of the way it fell off after he left. And up to that point before he left, him and Daryl and Carol, I didn't care about watching anything else because they were it. I mean, they were all three of them were gangster. Just stare at the flowers. That's what they were telling all the other TV shows. Just stare at the flowers. But as soon as he left, it's like
they were killing everything too. And I loved Negan when he come on. I mean, he was Jeffrey Dean Morgan. You couldn't have picked a better guy to play Negan. I just felt like, and I understand why they had to, write Rick off. He wanted to go do back to being time with his family, but it was just poorly timed, and they didn't. I guess the time jump, it just threw me for a loop. And I've heard that like some of the later seasons after the rest of that season got good, but I haven't went back.
Yeah, I would argue that any of those, they've had some good little plots here and there, but the whole series is not good. And I kind of upset too that they've never come back and finished off his story because it's like he wasn't dead, but they've never finished it still yet.
Well, we were promised movies, and Rick's been off the show 3 years now.
Yeah, and nothing's
we haven't got these
materialized.
movies. I haven't seen the first damn movie. So where my boy at?
Yeah, so I think that was a great show. Like I said, it didn't make my top 10, but with that, let's move into number 2. My number 2, and again, these aren't in any particular order, but the second show for me would be I'm gonna run with Supernatural. 15-year long running show. That was my one that I turned the phone upside down and I watched. If somebody
you took one off my you checkmated me or you kinged me right there, brother. You took one off my list.
Dude, that show had everything from the comedy, Jensen Ackles, some of the stuff he said and did on that show to the family drama, to the drama with all the supernatural stuff. And that was fantastic, man. And I hate that it's off there. I still turn it on Netflix and just watch random episodes just to have something to watch at times.
It's one of the few shows with that many seasons that I have seen twice. I have watched from start to finish twice. Some of it I've seen 3 times. I think I watched up to a certain point a 3rd time. Well, my license, it's one of 2 shows. I've done that too. I'll touch on that later. But you can't hear that Carry On My Wayward Son without just. Anytime it comes on the radio, I automatically. the story's so far apart. You know what I'm saying? It creeps into your
Yeah.
head, and it's like, oh, here we go.
Dude,
And
even the musical episode they did, and they started it off with the kids and they're singing that, and the story so far, I was like, you son of bitches.
that episode and the Scooby Doo episode, I was a little worried they jumped the shark with those.
I love
However,
those.
I enjoyed them enough to muddle through. And Supernatural, if you can't have that many episodes and you not have shit episodes, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that
Yeah,
every episode
not
is
every
great.
single one was great. Some
I
of them
will
just
say
carried the story.
it done far better than any other show as far as having at least 3 or 4 really great episodes before you got that one kind of and it just bridges and gaps and was just
Yeah.
thrown in there to. But I mean, look at how many episodes I have per season. I mean, you had a good bit of episodes of episodic TV there for an hour with that many seasons. That's a great catalog of TV right there.
If it hadn't have been for the fact that they just had finally had said, okay, we want to move on to try something different, they still wouldn't have ended that show. They would have had a contract still. The network
And
didn't want to
I
end it.
think they all regret it right now from various things I've seen. I think they all wish that they
Yeah,
had
I see a lot of them talking
played it
about
out
coming
another
back and
season
doing a
too.
mini series or doing, something else with it. And you know what? If it's the same folks come back, I have no problem with it. I will pick it up and watch it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But since you talked about rewatching the seasons multiple times, my number 3, because I think we agreed on that one there, but moving into number 3 here for me was Smallville. I've seen every episode of it probably at least twice.
Yes. That's another one on my top 10 as well. That was like the one great DC show to me
Oh
that
yeah,
they just even with the liberties they took on certain things, I just loved it.
well,
And
they took some liberties with stuff, but really it was a great acting, great storytelling. It's really your first modern day superhero show, and you wouldn't have even had some of these other shows like Supernatural or uh, Arrow,
you
Flash
would
without that.
never have had Arrowverse
Oh heck no.
if it had not been for the success of Smallville. They did not expect that show to kick off like it did.
And this to me also, even though they never got in the suit until the last, there was no flights, no tights rule, whatever it was. That was the greatest origin story to say this is why Clark Kent is Superman.
I'm gonna be honest. For a television show, their Doomsday was better than the Snyderverse Doomsday.
By far, yeah.
I mean, big time. I mean, you got Doomsday on that show. You got a tease of Darkseid on that show.
What
So many great villains. I mean,
that was one of
Lana's
my
probably
other
the greatest
things.
villain to come with that show.
That was one of my other things with them is the cameos and guest stars, not just the villains, but the heroes they had. You Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, Legion of Superheroes. They were, I mean, they had Impulse instead of Flash because there was some rules they couldn't get certain people. But Aquaman, they pulled all these people out. It's like you don't get that in other shows. I mean, obviously they didn't get Batman because Batman was a title property, but that's probably one of the few I wanted to see that I didn't get.
Not watch Arrow because I was so team Smallville Green Arrow that I couldn't allow myself to like another Arrow. And I do like the actor that plays him in Arrow. I wound up Stephen Amell. I wound up coming around to him, and I didn't watch the show, but other than a little here or there. But I was Smallville Green Arrow. I wanted if you were gonna give Green Arrow a show, why did we not get him? And I was actually pissed.
I was kind of that way at first, and then I realized this is not that same Green Arrow. This is more of a Batman story, but we can't have Batman, so we're going to do it with Green Arrow because he's your best Batman knockoff you got sitting around. But Stephen Amell was fantastic, and dude, I haven't seen it yet, but his new show Heels, I've heard of this. Great.
I do want to watch that.
That
is one of them.
So that takes us through 3. So we're at number 4 now. I have got next one on my list is The Flash, which is the current run. Not that I didn't love the 90s one, but it was a short-lived one-season thing, and it was a child of the 90s. It didn't have quite near the special effects and stuff. But this one, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of those CW DC TV shows that it feels like the comic book version of the characters. Hopeful. Grant Gustin, who is a fan of the comics now, he admits he's a bigger Superman fan than the Flash, but he plays the character the way it should be from the comics. I don't care much for Ezra Miller as the Flash, to be honest, in comparison. And
he is not Flash to me. I'm not a fan at all.
And the Flash, this new show of the Flash too, the way it shares their universe, and I realize it's not just them; it's all of the Arrowverse stuff, right? But the Flash is one of those that a lot of that crossover stuff feels like it fits in at home with it more than any of the others, and I just love the fact that they do that with all the shows. But out of all those shows, for me, the Flash is the only one that makes my top 10 list. So what do you have for your number 4?
I've got to go with Game of Thrones, man. Game of Thrones is another one that, oh my gosh, I had to see it every week, and it sucked because I didn't jump on board when everyone else did. Because I was kind of like, eh. I waited, it was probably 4 seasons deep before I jumped on board, so I was able to binge watch those 4 seasons in succession. And dude, I was so hooked, so hooked. And then it was like, you got such a lull between seasons as far as how long it takes to get that next episode. And I was like a junkie, man. I literally had my little boat, and I was like, I need another hit, baby. I need another hit, baby. I mean, I needed it. And but it's such a great show all the way up to the final season. They should have been with the final season, but there you won't find anyone that loves the show that won't tell you the same thing. Like until that final season, it is the greatest TV.
And see,
And in that final season,
that's another one I never got to watch. But I didn't have the opportunity to watch it because I didn't have the channels and we didn't have streaming. It wasn't on streaming at the time. And now that I do on HBO Max, all 8 seasons are there. But I'm like, I'm so far behind and it's over with now. Do I really even want to start it? So I haven't yet. I eventually probably will.
Yes, you want to start it. One, because you're not going to find another show that you will enjoy more currently. 2, as bad as the final season is, it's still better than 98% of anything on television today.
That's fair.
Although the biggest problem was it strayed so far from the source material. The writers didn't have a book to kind of follow. Like with the other seasons, they had books. Well, the guy that, Martin or whatever that wrote all this shit, he was still lulling around on how he was going to end it. So they didn't have how to do a how-to guide. Like, here's your cliff notes. Go write some television.
Yeah.
They didn't have that for the final season. But also, the spinoff does kick off within the next 6 months or so, I believe. And one of the most famous doctors is one of the biggest title character. He's a Targaryen and the lead character in the new spinoff. So with Matt Smith being in there, I feel like you need to watch this.
I might have to.
Dude, the time you start, you'll hate characters. And the next thing you know, you love them. And then once you start loving them, they kill the son of a bitches. I mean, they're worse than Walking Dead about when you start loving a motherfucker, that bitch is done. That bitch is, and some of them will like get you. Like on Walking Dead, Beth was the one that got me. Like for a couple of days, I was tore up. Like you'd have thought I lost a loved one. There's a few times in this right here where, like you're like, man, I'm boned the fuck out. But then there's some revenge kills for those kills later that, dude, are the Battle of the Bastards is probably, without watching this whole show, you won't be able to appreciate it. But it is an episode I have seen 4 times. It is the other show that I have seen in its entirety 3 times, and for various reasons. And that episode right there, Battle of the Bastards, it is just from start to finish great. And the episode afterwards, you don't have that dip and lull like you would with some shows. You get even more payback in the next episode that you're not expecting. It's dude, I can't recommend it enough. It is.
I will eventually sit down and try it out, but right now I've got a few I'm catching up on, and then as we're talking about these, there's a lot of these that I turn on. Some of these I turn on just because, hey, I need to go to sleep tonight, and I know I'm gonna fall asleep watching it because I watch it all the time anyway. But and actually that brings me to my next one. My number 5 is like that, and I love the show, but it's also one of those I'm like, if I fall asleep watching this, I've seen it all more than once, which is Stargate Sg1. the first Stargate spinoff they had. Atlantis was okay, but SG1 was the better one. And to me, it's one of those better sci-fi shows because it took elements from Star Trek with the exploration and going through the gate. And there was entire episodes where they never fire a single gun or fight, but then you had episodes where it's all a war, and it's like, okay, well, this is like half Star Wars, half Star Trek. I can get down with this. And I love the actors. The guy who played Daniel in the show did a fantastic job. But Macgyver being in there as the main character as Jack O'Neill, he was fantastic. And that show, last couple of seasons, kind of fizzled a little bit without him in it as much. But I still could sit there and watch all of them and enjoy them.
Well, to not lose fanboy credit here, I wasn't a fan of the movie or the show. And I seen some episodes with my grandmother. She loved the show. She loved the movies. So I would tough them out with her occasionally because she was big into sci-fi. But it was never my cup of tea. I don't know, just for whatever reason, it wasn't me. But that's kind of like what my next pick is. I know for a fact you despise, and it's Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah.
A show about nothing, much like our show. A show about nothing, and there's so many iconic, funny, and like I love Seinfeld. I can't. I'm not gonna stay, go into it, but it's just so enjoyable to me. I can literally cut, like, if I'm just like cut my TV on just for idle noise and that's on, I'll find myself whatever I'm doing, I start pulling, and next thing you know, I've watched 3 episodes in a row.
Well, and I never got into Seinfeld, but to your point, I have a comedy that's like that, and that's my number 6, which is Big Bang Theory. And I know you don't watch that either, and you didn't like that.
I actually enjoyed that. I didn't start out liking it. It was one that, like, certain characters, are kind of like Jerry Seinfeld is what turns you off of the Seinfeld show.
Yeah.
Because to me, he's not. I know he's the title character. You don't watch Seinfeld for Jerry Seinfeld. You watch it for Kramer. You watch it for George. I mean, them two right there.
The only character I liked on there was George Costanza.
Yeah, George and Kramer is why I watch Seinfeld. To begin with, I didn't like Sheldon. His mannerisms, his characteristics, he was just very off-putting to me. But I got to liking other characters on the show. And I mean, who can't fucking not love the hot ass neighbor? She's so fucking gorgeous. But I mean, I genuinely started liking the other one, even like Wallowitz. He's such a lovable idiot. And it's like, you know what? Before it was over with, I really enjoyed the show, and I come around to Sheldon. I did. I mean, it's like
what got me was not him. His mannerisms and stuff were sometimes funny, and sometimes they're kind of like Kramer. It's like it was funny for the first couple of times, and now it's not. But his interactions with people is what made him hilarious to me. Like, he generally had no clue that he was pissing people off or whatever. He thought he was always right, and it was just hilarious.
He was a little too quirky for me, but like I said, after a certain amount of time, he grew. Like a fungus, he grew on me.
Yeah, and I found too, because I travel for work, as we've talked about several times. I can be in Canada, coming off of working with the night shift team and doing some training, and turn the TV on at 3 a.m. when I hit the hotel, and it's on TV. I can get to a hotel at 4 p.m. in Missouri, and it's on TV. You can find it anytime you want to watch it. You don't have to have streaming. It is on somewhere.
It is like The Simpsons. There are 2 shows that I don't care where you're at. It's going to be in syndication somewhere.
Yeah. And it was one of those, I like situational comedies, and that one was one of those that it was this episode is this one. Some things carried over and had arches, but most of it didn't. It's just, this is the episode, and you could sit there and enjoy that one episode and move on.
Kind of like one of my next picks, Married with Children. I mean, I tried not to go too far into the vault.
That was great.
But I had to put Married with Children on there because I mean, I don't care where you're at in life. You can feel like the world is crashing down on you. You watch an episode of Married with Children, and if you don't feel better about yourself after watching 30 minutes of Al Bundy, then you need to talk to a crisis counselor. Something's wrong. This man right here, the show is great. Even in the later years, it didn't fall off. I mean, it was one of those that, like, a lot of shows you feel it taper towards a certain point. It's like,
Oh
okay.
yeah.
That one never really did, man. It didn't get the finale it deserved. It never got a reunion show, which is, it sucks. But it's one of my favorites, and like I said, I don't need to touch on it very much, but it's just a really great show. And staying with the same network, my next pick would have been In Living Color.
Oh, that was a good one too.
That just, man, it's a show that would never pass today. But much like Chappelle's show or and comedies of this nature, In Living Color would not be woke
No,
approved
no,
by
it would
no
not.
means. But it's a show I love.
Well, since you mentioned that and being woke approved, my next show is a fairly newer one. It just ended this year after I think 4 or 5 years. I can't remember, but and I had to watch it all on Netflix when it dropped on there because it's a Canadian show. But Kim's Convenience, that is the most un-PC comedy that you can find in today's world because they said stuff that you just know it's like, ooh, you can't say that in real life. And even on the show, they'd be like, even on the show, the Korean dad that owned the little convenience store, when he'd say something, start like, you can't say that. He's like, oh, okay. And he would rephrase it in a different way and say the exact same thing.
So it's pretty much a modern day All in the Family.
It kind of is, yeah. It is hilarious to me that it was just watching them on there. And again, it's one of those. It's a sitcom, right? It's an actual sitcom. This episode is contained. The only thing that carried over is, hey, these two people like each other. Maybe 30 episodes down the line, we're going to go on a date or something. But it's not something that you have to watch every single one. If you miss one, it's fine.
Yeah.
And that's what I look for in a comedy. But it's one of those two that I can turn it on, and 5 minutes into the show, just from the intro, I am laughing so hard I'm about to cry, and I just continue watching, and I'll turn it on just for background noise at this point sometimes.
My next one, though, I got to go with Stranger Things.
Another one I haven't seen.
I'm actually I'm going to be honest. You disappoint me, G. There's no way around it, Monster. I can't fathom this enough. You disappoint me. This show is great. Just top to bottom. You get your nostalgia because it's like set in the 80s. Like literally they touch on, like you see Ghostbusters. I mean, various, references, good 80s references. You got mullets, you got assholes with members only jackets. I mean, Russians are a part of one episode, so and you get the vibe of, oh shit, the Cold War and so forth and so on. So it's just a really great show. And then you got your sci-fi, the Demogorgon and all that stuff. And like these kids, the heroes of the show, they're nerds like us. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons and things. So when they meet the Demogorgon, it's almost like Dungeons and Dragons has come to life for them.
And I've heard so many people talk well about it, and I wanted to watch it. It's one of those that's like been on my list, but I didn't start it when it first came out. I was like, I don't know about this, and then I heard it was great, and I'm like, all right, I need to watch it, and I just haven't turned it on and done it.
It's another one you can binge, and you can binge in a quickness. You won't be realized you have watched. Because I think it's it's going to be season 4 next year when it
Yeah, something
drops.
like that.
Probably next June or July is typically when they drop a season. So you can watch these 3 seasons over Christmas break very easily.
And a lot of stuff like that, I keep a list of things like that show and Game of Thrones. I'm like, well, when I travel, I only got so many. I've still got all my streaming, but there's only certain ones I want to watch on a tablet versus the TVs. I'm like, so maybe I'll do some of them when I travel like that.
Well, Stranger Things is one you can watch at home with Orrin.
Yeah, he's actually seen them.
Game of Thrones, I do not recommend this. You better watch that on the road.
Yeah, and he's actually watched Stranger Things. He's the one telling me all the time you need to watch it. I just have not.
The kid's got great taste. Listen to him.
He does he does on some things, and I'll admit my number 8 show is one that he loves as well, and we watch it all the time together. It's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Now I will admit there's certain seasons and certain Doctors that I don't care for. Like I'm not a fan of going back and watching the first or second Doctor. The fourth Doctor I could watch anytime. The 10th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, they were all fantastic. I'm not as big on the 13th one here, but I still will pick it up and watch it. And
Well,
I
I
watch all
think
the
all of
episodes.
us are universally in tune with David Tennant's the Doctor.
Yeah,
I mean, as much as everyone wants to say the Fourth Doctor, because he does it, but I mean, David Tennant is universally your modern day Doctor.
yeah, easily.
I wasn't a big fan of Matt Smith. I enjoyed some of the stories. I will say were well enough that I could enjoy them and get beyond him. When
That's
Capaldi
fair.
come on, he was actually I really liked him, especially like in the first season. Like he was the closest thing to the Fourth Doctor we had incarnation wise, other than maybe with the one season we got with Destro himself, when they rebooted other things. Yeah, because he kind of come off like an asshole and a prick, but like I'm doing what's best for the universe versus what everybody
Yeah,
thinks is. So he come a lot like the Fourth Doctor to me, but then you wind up loving him,
yeah.
and when you lose Clara, it's like, oh my god.
But the entire show to me is one of those that it goes from you have comedic episodes that are like fully comedic the whole time to the next episode is so emotionally draining and serious, and it's like, how do you go from both ends of the spectrum like that? But they can do it. Now I would say the newest one I haven't seen that as much with, but like Capaldi was great at that. Matt Smith had some great episodes like that. David Tennant, they could take you from point A to point B in the span of one show or the span of 2 hours of watching two of them if you needed to break it down. And that's what I really liked about it. It's a drama, but it's a sci-fi drama, and everything in it makes sense. Even the shit that doesn't, the wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, they make it make sense somehow.
Although the War of the Doctors is probably my favorite episode. I mean, you got three doctors in the same episode, and it also introduced a new doctor that was the in-between doctor that didn't get
Yeah.
recognition. And then in a battle, you finally get some what is Bad Wolf, Oh man, that's such a great episode. I love it,
Oh yeah.
and it made me where I could get behind Smith enough to where I did feel a little bit of sympathy and sadness in the town that Christmas forgot.
Oh dude,
Well, when
that
you wind
episode.
up when you wind up rebooting and losing Smith, I actually I was invested by that point. I'm not in this new Doctor. I'm gonna be honest. I hate to offend anyone, but I just well, he could have changed and been anything else other than a chick. I'm just not behind that right there. I know they did it with the Master. I wasn't really a fan of that, but you know what? They played off more like, okay, it's Missy, it's not the Master.
Right.
It was almost like a separate character to a degree, to where it's like, okay, I enjoyed that a little bit, and I prefer the Master. But then when it's just like, okay, now we just have to do it with a Doctor. No, you didn't.
So I will say this, and not to prolong it, just because we're running a little tighter on time, but what I'll say is that I didn't care that it changed to a female doctor, and the actress is not terrible. She's not great, but she's not terrible. But the acting, the storylines they have given her are just completely against what you expect of Doctor Who. Like some of
Yeah.
them are like complete reverse of what he would have done as any of the other 12 before that, and that's what bothers me and why I'm not enjoying it. But I don't attribute it any to her. It's more of the storylines. She's actually had some episodes where she's done some pretty decent acting in parts of it, but then it's hard to see how well her acting could be because the stories are so bad.
Yeah. And Doctor Who's always been progressive. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, he had the first lesbian, companion, and I wasn't really loving her. And I mean, they were one of the first big shows, have interracial relationships, with a companion and all. I mean, great. I was great. I loved it. It was fine, but I'm not a big fan of gender swapping characters. I
Yeah.
just.
And it's one of those that's always going to change. So you're going to have your bad doctors, your bad seasons, and you're going to have your good ones. And it's about time for her to leave. This is her last hurrah. So we'll see who comes next and if it's any better. But I still check out all of them, even if I don't enjoy the episodes as much. Like with her seasons, I kind of just turn them on and drawn out a little bit, played on my phone, and listened to it a little bit, watched occasionally here and there. But I still have to, just for the legacy of the entire show, it has to go into my top 10. But with that, that brings us to number 8 for you. So what have you got?
Well, you chose a lot of my shows. So, I mean, we had you beat up a good bit of my list. So my final one that I have that I know you hadn't touched is going to be a guilty pleasure more than a favorite show, and it's going to be Eastbound and Down. Petey fucking Powers, baby. That show is so un-PC, but I love it. I mean, Will Ferrell, when he's got in his Ric Flair knockoff, I mean, and the, you know, his half brother, when he's like, "Hey, can I use your bathroom? You gotta do one or two." But I mean, there's just so many just horrible lines, and I love it. It's a great show. It was one I felt I had to see each week, and was so bummed when it got canceled. I was like, damn, because you want to see redemption, you want to see him make it, and he's just the fuck up that just can't.
Yeah, that is a good one. I haven't watched that in a while, and I didn't get to watch very many of them, but the ones I did were always funny. So you said, so was that your? Have we matched up on all of them, or is that? Because you said that.
Well, you knocked my list out because we had a lot of the same
okay.
shows. So when you hit them, I mean, you was knocking on my list too. So I mean,
I've only got my 9 and 10 left, and I doubt you have either one of these, and I'll go through them quickly just so we can move ahead. But I had Angel. I liked Buffy, but I liked Angel a lot better. It seemed much darker and much more almost like this is the closest we're going to get to Batman on TV at this point in time as you could get. So I really enjoyed it. And then my last one was Eureka, which was a comedy drama on Sci-Fi. It ran for like 5 years, but I enjoyed the crap out of it. It was just always funny. And it's one of those few that when it ended, you didn't feel like, oh, that was so serious and I'm just drained out. Every time it ended the show, well, 8 out of 10 times when they ended the show, it was still kind of like upbeat at the end. It was like, okay, so you don't leave it in a bad mood, even though it's a more drama than a comedy. But yeah, I've been rewatching it lately. I turn it on at night when I'm going to bed right now.
I will say Angel was one that I had somehow escaped me. That was a very, and like their finale was like kind of heart wrenching. It was.
Oh, dude, the final scenes on that were, that was a good one to me. But with that, I think that brings us to our nerd out section where we get to ask our random questions to each other about the theme of the day and get to see what kind of just off the wall questions and answers we get. You went first last week.
Sure.
All right. Yes, so my nerd out question for you this time. What TV show theme song is the most iconic and recognizable? Actual theme, it's got to be official, not unofficial. Like Carry On Wayward Son just matched up to the show, but it wasn't made for the show. So what would you say is the most iconic and recognizable official theme song that you can think of? And it doesn't even have to have lyrics because we're talking about TV things. So some of them were just music, but some of them, as soon as you hear it, I know exactly what that is, and I know I'm going to watch it for a minute.
Ooh, that's a damn good one, Monster. I will be honest.
I have been struggling to answer this question since about Friday because it hit my mind. I was like, oh, what would that be?
Well, you know what I mean. I'm gonna go longevity wise. A lot of things come to mind. Like I could easily say Unsolved Mysteries or Sanford and Son or something of this.
Those are great ones.
I'm gonna go Doctor Who just because of longevity. You hear that woo, you know what it is. You can be across the house.
Yeah.
You hear that, you know what it is.
Yeah, and that was actually, I had 3 things tied for the answer there. And I'm like, I don't know which one to pick. That's one of them. The other 2 were just A-Team and Knight Rider because the way those started and the very specific riffs, you knew exactly what those were.
Yeah.
I mean, Macgyver was one of those that was kind of recognizable, but not quite as much. But you hear the Knight Rider thing starter, you hear the A-Team, and you know exactly what they are. I mean, you can't not recognize those. But Doctor Who is the longest running one. Even though they've had different iterations, it still has that same sound to start everything and that same basic beat to it. So that
Yeah,
would probably
you always
be
have that dun 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 leading into
yeah.
the. No matter how they tweaked it here or there for.
Yeah, that you're still coming up with the same thing, no matter what. So that's a good
Wow,
one.
that was a great one, dude. You really you threw me for a loop though. That was not what I was expecting because I'll be honest, I had come up with 2 questions.
I
And
did as well, and that was my first one.
I almost knew that one of the two was going to be what you asked. So I'm kind of excited right here, right now. Okay. You get a mulligan card here. You have any TV show you want to bring back, erase their final season, and end it the way you want to, the way you feel it should be ended. Unlimited budget, everybody comes back on any network you want. What show do you bring back for a final season corrected, and on what network?
I would probably have to say it is. I'm torn between two, but I'm gonna have to lean more towards one. As I want a better ending season for Supernatural. I felt like their ending season got cut. A lot of stuff that they wanted to do, a lot of the guest stars they wanted to have because of the pandemic and stuff, all that was cut out. And I would just like to see them get the true ending they deserve. Because even when you listen to them in interviews, they talk about all the people who were supposed to, everybody who pretty much had any major to bit part was supposed to be in the final 4 or 5 episodes, and they got maybe 3 to 5 people out of it.
Yeah,
So
I've
I
got to
would
say
expect
that final episode of that was just shit. I mean, I was a fan of the final season, but that last episode where you just get Dean dead and old Sam, I mean, I was like, what the fuck is this shit?
that. You know that the way they ended that part didn't bother me, but like when he goes to heaven and the only person he gets to see is Bobby. And don't get me wrong, Bobby needed to be there, but where's Jeffrey Dean Morgan? Where's the mom? Where's
I'm not
where's
gonna lie,
everybody else?
Dean went out like a bitch. I mean, he went out like a bitch in that. I wasn't a fan. It upset me because I was like,
I would
it
have
upset me
probably
more how he went out than the fact that he did go out.
I would have actually liked to have seen most of that redone anyway, but that would be my pick. My other one is the other one I debated about would have been Smallville, just to give them a bigger ending with him in the suit, actually in the suit, not just CGI'd the suit on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I gotta lean more towards Supernatural just because longevity, and it's that show for me. It was if I had to rank my shows, it's probably gonna hit number 1.
Okay.
What about you?
Mine is hand down Game of Thrones.
Hmm.
I erase that final season. I go to HBO Max and I fix the travesty that is that final season. You had a couple of episodes in that final season that were actually really good. And it's just like at a certain point, they was like, okay, we don't know how to end this. And they kind of took a switcheroo to throw the fans, and I just wasn't a fan for it. Change for change is never good to me. So I end the show much different than how they ended the show. And yeah, Game of Thrones is the one where I just completely redo its final season.
That's fine. And I haven't seen it, so I will probably feel that way after I watch it. But that's it. I couldn't pick that one just because I haven't seen it. But I've heard a lot of people complain that it did the last. I've heard like the last half of the last season, people say just did not live up to the expectations of what it started with.
Well, like your first episode is like really good on that season. Then you get 2 or 3 episodes that it's like, okay, where's this going? It's like a build up, like it's building, it's building, it's building, it's building. And then you have an episode or two that's like, oh shit, this is great. And then it's like, just like that, it nosedives for the last, I guess, 2 episodes. And they try to cram so much into those 2 episodes because the season got shorted and due to budgets and things of this nature. And Yeah, it ended very rushed and some poor decisions.
Gotcha.
And honestly, your answer to the last question was my alternate question: was what one show would you bring back for one final season? And you answered exactly like I would. I would have brought back Supernatural, and you know that would have been my go.
Yeah, they needed something different. But it seems to be when they get to the end of some of these shows that they have a hard time figuring out how exactly do we want to end it.
Well, you can't please everyone. You're going to
No.
please half of the people with the way you go, and there's going to be us assholes that aren't pleased because it wasn't the way we wanted it to be. So, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, with that, I think that brings today's episode to a close. But before we leave, Hassel, how about telling the audience where they can find us at?
You can find us on Twitter. We are at Nerdy MR Show.
If you enjoyed this video or any of our other content, please give us a like, subscribe, or share. It always helps us out. And join us here next time. We'll be talking about all things Star Wars. Until then, live nerdy and enjoy your must-see TV.
So